everyone, and welcome back to Next Gen Gaming SC. I'm your host, Josh Snyder, and today we have some Store Showdown coverage from Empire Games in Anderson, South Carolina. And this round one feature match is a special one to me. My son, Alden Snyder, playing on camera for the very first time. He was the youngest player at the Store Showdown, just 9 years old. He was rocking Boba Yellow, and he takes on Cassian Red in round one. Let's get right to the action. We are ready to get underway at the Store Showdown at Empire Games in Anderson, South Carolina. The round one feature match, Boba Yellow versus Cassian Red. We have Alden on the left piloting Boba Yellow, and Matthew on the right piloting Cassian Red. The links to both deck lists will be posted down in the description below. Matthew's Cassian Red, very similar to some of the Sabine Red deck lists that we have been seeing over the past couple months. But instead of Sabine, Cassian, so Cassian provides a little bit more presence later in the game, but loses some of the aggression with Sabine. So we'll see how Cassian stands up to Boba. Boba Yellow does pretty good against Sabine for the most part. Pretty solid matchup into Sabine. And again, this is a very similar deck, just Sabine switched out with Cassian. Turn one, Alden playing a Viper Probe Droid. And then Matthew playing Benthic 2 Tubes. Alden just claiming the initiative. And we'll take the first action here in round two. Alden's Boba Yellow running the 30 HP base. Matthew running the 25 HP Tarkin Town. 30 HP, so important for the Boba Yellow decks. And with the first action of the round, Alden will take Viper Probe Droid, attack Matthew's base for 3. And then Matthew will follow up with a Fleet Lieutenant, attacking with Benthic 2 Tubes with 4 power into Alden's base, so 4 damage onto Alden's base. Matthew has 3 damage on his base. Alden has yet to use any resources this round. He is going to play 7th Fleet Defender into the Space Arena. Matthew will just claim the initiative. And Alden will pass. We'll move on to the next round. Matthew will have the first action to take. Benthic 2 Tubes and Fleet Lieutenant in the ground arena. Let's see if Matthew continues with the aggressive approach. The Viper Probe Droid in the ground arena for Alden does present a threat to the Fleet Lieutenant. And Matthew is going to take Benthic 2 Tubes and attack Alden's base for 2. So 6 total damage on Alden's base now. The action over to Alden. Now he has to decide, does he want to trade with the Fleet Lieutenant? Viper Probe Droid could attack into Fleet Lieutenant. Both units would be defeated. Or does he decide to maybe play something first? Does have the 7th Fleet Defender in space, and he will just use the Viper Probe Droid to make the trade with Fleet Lieutenant. And back over to Matthew. He is going to follow up with another threat in the ground arena, K2SO. K2SO, a vital part of the aggressive red decks. It can be a tough play, K2SO against Boba, with Boba having the ability to bounce K2SO back to the hand. And here comes Cunning here in round 3 for Alden. He is going to give the 7th Fleet Defender +4 power for the phase. And he will have Matthew discard a random card from his hand. Matthew will discard a Fleet Lieutenant. So 2 Fleet Lieutenants out of the way early here in game 1. Matthew just claiming the initiative, and Alden attacking Matthew's base with the 7th Fleet Defender. 7 damage into Matthew's base there for a total of 10 on. So 10 damage on Matthew's base, 6 damage on Alden's base. And that will conclude the round. Matthew has complete control of the ground arena currently. Alden does have the defender in the space arena, and we are moving on to 5 resources for both players, which means Boba Fett is live here in this round. And Boba can quickly help take back control of the ground arena. And it looks like Alden is going to take the first action. Now, Matthew did claim the initiative last round, but it looks as though both players forgot to move the initiative token back across the table over to Matthew. And they have forgot that Matthew has the initiative, so it is definitely important to make sure that both players stay aware of the initiative token and make sure to move it when the initiative is claimed, just so you don't forget in the next round. So Gamorrean Guards comes down for Alden, and Matthew is going to follow up with aggression, defeating the shield on the 7th Fleet Defender and dealing 4 damage to the Gamorrean Guards that Alden just played. And now after the aggression, just 1 resource still available for Alden. He will deploy Boba Fett. And now the action back over to Matthew. Needs to try and get in some damage quickly before Boba Fett has a field day here in the ground arena. And Matthew will choose to attack with Benthic 2 tubes. 2 damage to Alden's base. And then he will give K2SO Raid 2 for the remainder of the phase. So K2SO can come across for 6 damage now. After that attack, 8 damage on Alden's base. The action back over to Alden. And Alden does not want anything to do with K2SO coming across for 6. Boba Fett into K2SO, defeating him. Matthew will deal 3 damage to Alden's base from the when defeated trigger on K2SO, and Alden does get to ready 2 resources from the Boba Fett ability. Matthew has just claimed the initiative. Alden will use the 7th Fleet Defender to attack Matthew's base for 3. 13 damage on Matthew's base now. And Alden now updating the total amount of damage on his base. So we've got 13 damage on Matthew's base, 11 damage on Alden's base. And again, at this point, Matthew has claimed the initiative. And after readying a couple resources, Alden having 3 available to him, playing a Bodie Rook. No non-unit cards in Matthew's hand, but he does get another threat in the ground arena. And then we will move on to the next round. At this stage in the game, Alden has taken control of the board. Matthew only has 11 damage on Alden's base right now. He is going to have to find a way to apply some real pressure. But at the same time, he also has to be very aware of the amount of damage that is coming back across the board. Matthew just 12 damage away from losing here in game 1. So with the first action this round, Matthew will play another aggression. He will deal 4 damage to Boba Fett and draw a card. So that is one major threat taken off the board. And now the action back over to Alden.
Does he have any raids on him?
No, he's just a 2.
With a ready Bodie Rook and 7th Fleet Defender. He will use the 7th Fleet Defender to attack Matthew's base for 3. And that puts Matthew up to 16 damage on his base. Matthew just has 2 resources still ready. He will play an Alliance X-Wing in the space arena.
I will attack your base.
And here comes Bodie Rook. 3 more damage to Matthew's base for a total of 19 damage on. And now we will see Cassian being deployed. Alden has yet to use any of his resources, and here comes the Fett's Fire Spray. Fire Spray entering play, ready. Matthew just 6 damage away from losing here in game 1, and Fett's Fire Spray is showing 5 possible damage on Alden's next action. Matthew does not have any resources still available to him, and just has Cassian and Benthic 2 tubes ready in the ground arena, but no way to deal with the Fett's Fire Spray. And that means that the Fire Spray could very well secure the win for Alden here in game 1. The Fire Spray showing 5 damage would put Matthew to 24 damage on, and then Alden would need to just be able to get 1 more attack in with any unit. With Matthew's action, he uses Benthic 2 tubes and attacks into Bodie Rook, putting 2 damage onto Bodie Rook, but that does defeat Benthic. And here comes the Fett's Fire Spray. 5 damage into Matthew's base, 24 damage on. And that will do it. Matthew will scoop it up here in game 1. Alden victorious with Boba Yellow, and takes the 1-0 lead here in round 1 of the Store Showdown. We are set for game 2 here in round 1 at the Empire Games Store Showdown. Boba Yellow versus Cassian Red. Alden versus Matthew. Alden with the 1-0 lead. Matthew will start with the initiative here in game 2. And he will put a Sabine into the ground arena. And it looks like Alden has Greedo in his hand, but that would certainly not be a great turn 1 play with a Sabine in the ground arena and the initiative on Matthew's side. So Alden playing the Cartel Spacer into the space arena. And Matthew will retain the initiative. and take the first action here in round 2. Sabine can deal 3 damage by herself, but of course a Fleet Lieutenant could take that up to 5 damage. But we are going to see a different 3-cost unit here in round 2. Fighters for Freedom coming down into the ground arena for Matthew, putting some added pressure onto Alden. And now with the action back over to Alden. Still looking at a ready Sabine. Of course, Alden does have the Cartel Spacer ready to go in the space arena. Alden is going to go ahead and play the 3-drop Boba Fett unit. And here comes Sabine across the board. 3 damage to Alden's base. And now Alden has the choice to make of, does he want to claim the initiative or get in 2 damage with the Cartel Spacer. And Alden will opt to go the aggressive route, 2 damage to Matthew's base. And with 2 rounds concluded here in game 2, Alden has 3 damage on his base, Matthew with 2 damage. Matthew does have a Fighters for Freedom and Sabine in the ground arena, facing down the 3-5 Boba Fett on Alden's side of the board, and the Spacer over in the space arena. The first action will be on Matthew. Boba Fett certainly a problem, as he will slow down things for Matthew in the ground arena. And it looks like Matthew is going to, well, he was thinking about paying 1 for something. It looks like he has precision fire in his hand. He could precision fire onto the Fighters for Freedom. That would give Fighters for Freedom +2 power, and that would allow Fighters for Freedom to take out Boba Fett. So that is exactly what Matthew plays in this spot. Precision fire, attacking with Fighters for Freedom. And since Fighters for Freedom is a trooper, it gets +2 power, up to 5 power, and that will defeat Boba Fett. Now, Fighters for Freedom should not have been defeated there. Boba Fett only had 3 power, so maybe Matthew thought that Fighters for Freedom had 1 less HP, but Fighters should still be on the board with 1 HP remaining. And following up the precision fire play, another round 3 cunning for Alden, giving Cartel Spacer +4 power for the phase and discarding a random card. This time it is Gorilla Attack Pod. So Alden going for the same play here on round 3 as he did in game 1. Matthew will take Sabine and attack Alden's base for 3 damage. That is 6 damage in total. And Cartel Spacer will come across for 6 damage to put Matthew's base up to 8 damage on. And Matthew, for the first time in this match, will use the Cassian action ability, paying 1 and drawing a card since he dealt 3 damage to Alden's base. Alden claiming the initiative. And with 2 more ready resources, we are going to see a Green Squadron A-Wing come down into the space arena for Matthew. And then that will conclude the round. So Alden a little bit ahead here in the damage race. But a unit in each arena for Matthew, just the Cartel Spacer on board for Alden right now. But this is the round where we can see Boba Fett come out and put on some serious pressure. Alden with the first action. He will play Cantina Bouncer. And he is going to bounce the Green Squadron A-Wing back to Matthew's hand, which protects the Cartel Spacer. The Green Squadron A-Wing could have come across the board, defeated Cartel Spacer, and still had 1 HP remaining, so a solid play there for Alden. Alden does remember to use the Boba Fett ability. Since an enemy unit left play, he can exhaust Boba Fett and ready a resource. And since Boba can still be deployed this round, we could see Alden with 3 ready resources before the round's over, allowing him to continue to push more pressure onto the board. The action on Matthew. He does have all 5 resources available to him. A ready Sabine in the ground arena. And with Matthew's first action here of the round, he will play Wing Leader, and that is going to give Sabine 2 experience tokens, bringing Sabine up to a 4/5, which means that Sabine can deal 5 damage when attacking with her extra ability. And Alden is going to take the Cartel Spacer and attack Matthew's base for 2 damage, putting the total damage on Matthew's base up to 10. And now Matthew does still have 2 resources available. And Sabine could take out the Cantina Bouncer, or go into Alden's base for 5 damage. And Matthew will attack Alden's base for 5 with Sabine, so 11 damage on Alden's base. Alden then deploys Boba Fett, and then Matthew puts down Green Squadron A-Wing into the space arena. And Alden wasting no time with Boba Fett attacking Matthew's base for 4 more damage. That is 14 total damage on Matthew's base. Matthew claiming the initiative. Alden passing. We move on to the next round. Here at the start of round 5, Matthew has to be very cautious. He has 14 damage on his base. 11 more damage for Alden would be enough to finish this match. And right now, Alden is showing 9 total damage on board between his 3 units. So with Matthew's first action, he will very likely have to do some board control here to mitigate some of the damage that Alden can deal here in this round. So Matthew's first action, he will use Sabine and attack Cantina Bouncer, dealing that extra damage to Bouncer. So 5 total damage dealt to Cantina Bouncer, which will defeat the unit, and just 3 damage back onto Sabine. Sabine sticking around with the 2 extra HP. Wing Leader giving the Sabine unit 2 experience tokens earlier in the game. And with Alden's action, he will use the Cartel Spacer to attack and defeat Wing Leader. So Alden playing it a little bit safe here. taking care of one of the threats that Matthew had in the space arena. And now the action back over to Matthew. Matthew will play a Zeb Aurelios into the ground arena. And now here comes Boba Fett. 4 damage to Matthew's base. That is 18 damage on. Matthew does still have 1 ready resource. He could use the Cassian action ability this turn, so he is going to go ahead and attack with Green Squadron A-Wing. 3 damage to Alden's base. That puts Alden's base up to 14 damage on. And that does enable the Cassian action ability, which would allow Matthew to draw a card. And here comes the Fett's Fire Spray. Not missing a beat here in round 1. Coming down right away in round 5 in game 1. And then the same thing, round 5, game 2. Alden's got the Fire Spray for some big-time pressure in the space arena. And that is 5 more damage showing, which would put Matthew just 2 damage short of losing this match. Matthew does use the Cassian action ability to draw 1 card. And here comes Fett's Fire Spray. 5 damage to Matthew's base. 23 damage on. Matthew can still deploy Cassian, but the problem is he has no more resources available. And an attack from either Cartel Spacer or the Fett's Fire Spray would be enough to win the game for Alden. And even an attack from Boba Fett, so an attack from any of Alden's units on the board would be enough to finish the game. With Cassian being deployed here, it doesn't really help Matthew much because Cassian does not have enough power to defeat Boba Fett. And then Alden could just claim and attack right away. So Matthew will claim the initiative, draw a couple cards looking for an answer. He does not find it, and that is going to do it. Alden is victorious here in Game 2, and Alden will take the 2-0 win here in Round 1 of the Store Showdown. The young man certainly has a bright future ahead of him. Thank you so much to everyone joining me here today. Stay tuned for more Store Showdown coverage coming soon. May the Force be with you, and until next time, take care.